Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about forgetting stuff. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, "Hi Frederick, I have a question for you. I would be glad if you share your thoughts on it. How can one be in touch with technologies that he has previously worked on and wants to keep in his CV as those technologies, but is not using as part of his new job? PS. In my previous company, I had developed a good understanding of cloud DevOps concepts and technologies like Kubernetes, the Elk stack, but now these are not getting used in my current company." This is a good question. So the first thing I will give you as a piece of advice now, guys, is that I know that this sucks so bad, and it keeps on sucking forever and ever and ever, and I see it all the time, especially in interviews, where you have a software developer or some person who goes for "I know all the things," that type of deal, right? And what I mean by going for all the things is that this person can there is a value in the amount of tools that you know. We know this to be true. The problem is when you're trying to convince the world that you know them all equally. And the reason why you do that is for the same damn reason you're trying to convince your date that you're very rich, or that you're very smart, or that you're trying to convince your parents that you have your life on track, and like all of this other stuff. You're doing it because there's a value in the perception of you if you have all this stuff down. If you are able to do all these things and you've worked with all of these things, then that's valuable to you. It's not as fun to say that, you know what, I used to be that person. And for a lot of people who live that type of life, you've probably met them sometimes where like they talk about, "Oh, I used to be this and I used to be that." I like to say that the people who are really popular in school when they're 16, and there's people who are then in their 40s sitting on a park bench somewhere talking to other people who were really popular and in sports and said, "If it wasn't for my bum knee, yeah, then I would have gone pro." Or like way they talk about how awesome their life used to be. Now, for us software developers, it's a very similar sort of thing. You have to accept that you will not be able to live on old merits forever. But at the same time, you cannot try to leverage those old outdated skills forever. Not in the same fashion, but here's the kicker with all of that. You don't have to, because there is a value in the thing that you learned as long as you retained something from that experience. And that's the thing that goes unsaid. So if I go into an interview and I say that I know all of this stuff, and it turns out that I've actually only worked a little bit, just a tiny fraction of a sliver of a thing with that thing, but I claim and I did like a million years ago, then I, as the interviewer, when I interview you, I'm gonna hear that you don't know your shit. And that's the problem. So it's not a problem for you to be rusty or to forget things that you used to do quite a lot, or not be as up to date with things that you used to do a lot. As long as you, at that point when you were doing it, acquired enough skill so that someone can very clearly tell that, yeah, this person actually knows what they're saying. Because the thing is, if you try to put every single little thing that you've ever done, even if it's like for a day or for a week, and trust me guys, I've done so many interviews with people who do this, and it's just embarrassing, because you ask them like a skin deep question regarding the topic and they fall to pieces immediately. They have no idea what they're saying, and the reason, as I said, is because they want to sell the idea that they know this stuff or that they used to know it. But the thing is, I can very clearly hear that they don't. They may have known it at some point, but even like they haven't retained any of that knowledge, and so it's not. Don't even bring it up, because all that's going to happen is that you're going to embarrass yourself. All that's going to happen is that people are going to think that you're trying to pull a fast one, or you're trying to sell that you're better than you are. That's what's going to happen. So you have to accept that you're not going to be able to be like the best at everything you ever touch, you're going to have a long career. And unless you stay on literally the same stack for your entire career, you're going to have to accept that some stuff is you're just going to forget it. I've done this 100 times over. I have things on my CV where I will not be able to do this thing. Like, I basically don't even remember the syntax, how to do certain things in, say, I don't know, Python or C or something like that. But then again, that's something that I'm very transparent with when I talk to someone who's going to hire me for a position. If they come and talk to me and say, hey Fredrik, we need someone who is going to be a C lead or a Python lead or something like that, and I go, yeah, that's not going to be me. So if you're looking for someone who knows TypeScript or something where I kind of know that I know this stuff fairly well, or I know that if push comes to shove I can do this thing and I can kind of pick it up because I'm just rusty with it, but I still have retained enough to actually be able to be productive, then I will I'll just be transparent about the thing. And then I let the interviewer or the person I'm working with or whatever make the call. Is this good enough? Yes or no? Trying to, as I said, trying to sell this idea that I know everything and that I always remember things, that's just not going to work, because that's not how life works. Because the thing is, during your life you will learn and forget things, and you can't keep everything up to date. So it's kind of like riding a bicycle in a way, where if you practice intensely for a few months and you learn how to ride your bike, well, then it doesn't really matter if you don't do it for years and years, because the second that you're going to get up on the bike again, well, sure, you're going to be a little bit wobbly maybe, and you're not going to be as good at it as you were when you were a kid, but you will remember how to do it. So what I like to say is that I have a saying, this is my own personal saying, which is, master the skills you use every day and practice the skills you will need tomorrow. Because the thing is, guys, there's no point in you trying to retain a skill that you're no longer using. Because if you did learn it at some point, as I was saying, your experience, that's kind of what the whole thing is about, guys. The people who lead IT, like the super developers or like the tech leads and like all of these people, they don't know all the things that are relevant because they left that life long behind, in most cases a long time ago. The reason why they're getting paid insane amounts of money is because they've already lived so many years as someone who knows the stuff, ideally, and acquired enough experience so that their experience actually shines through. And that's what you're going for. And so what I think that you should focus more on is not how do I retain all the things I've learned. Focus instead on what's my next step. And whenever you get to a next step and you start learning something, take the time to really learn it. Don't just like throw things and kind of figure them out a little bit and then just throw them away, because you're not going to remember that. That's, as I said, that's like learning how to ride it's like riding a bicycle. If you don't practice enough intensely when you're trying to learn it, you're not going to remember it when you try it again after X amount of years. So what I want you to take away from this is that it is pointless for you to try to remember all the things that you've been doing, and there's no point in trying, because you're not going to be able to. Focus instead of building a strong understanding of the tools that are relevant, and then try to pick tools that are relevant for whatever goals you have. So if your new job isn't giving you like you don't get to work with things that, I don't know, that you used to work with or so forth, don't sweat it. Ask yourself rather that if you want to work with these tools, because everything that you're acquiring in terms of experience is value building. It doesn't matter what you used to work with, because the thing that as long as the thing that you're working with now is something that is relevant, because then you go to the next place and you're going to be able to say that, well, yeah, for the last few years I've been working primarily with this thing here, but even further back than that, I used to work with these sorts of things, and I think I still remember a few things about that. Just as I was saying, don't try to sell that you're equally good at everything, because it's not a good strategy. Rather, mention it in terms of relevancy. In other words, sell the thing that you're really, really good at, because that's the stuff that you've been doing pretty much most recently, right? And then mention the stuff that you used to do, and don't try to make it sound like you're equally good. And you're going to get like just a return on investment every single time. I promise you that much. Have a great day.